Welcome to Warsaw. My name is Dr. Frank Henker-Stefani. I have been working as a scientist on nicotine and alternative products for many years. I'm here at the Global Forum on Nicotine, the best place in the world to talk about tobacco harm reduction and a very good place to meet the community and experts. I'm looking forward to interesting talks. I'm very pleased to be joined by Bengt Wiberg. You are not only an inventor, but you are also running a successful business in the field of snus, oral tobacco, and last but not least, you are also an harm reduction advocate who took quite an active part in attempts to get classification of snus in the United States as modified risk product, and it was quite successful. It was less successful to remove the ban in Europe, but things are not over yet. And well, of course, it's a fascinating story. Snus is a traditional Swedish product, but as in many other countries, the cigarette took over in the 50s, 60s, and something happened then. Snus was rediscovered or got back into fashion. Can you explain what was the reason that the Swedish turned back to their traditional kind of tobacco consumption?
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here. In 1912, I think it was the peak snus, in Sweden. But during the war, Sweden was not at war, but they gave cigarettes to those who were in the military. But then something happened, big innovation, the innovation of the cigarette filter in the end of the 50s. It became popular in the 60s, and this was before science started to realize that smoking is very, very bad for you. So what happened is that smoking just went straight up, the sales, and snus were going down. Then former mentor of mine, Professor Kurt Ensel, he was the research manager for what was later to become Swedish Match. He came up with an innovation. He thought that, snus was in a loose form. You have to form it like a ball, and it's running tobacco between your teeth. And he thought, this is very messy. So he came up with the idea of taking a tea bag, empty it, and put the snus inside, roll it up, and all of a sudden it was much more hygienical. So the first portion snus, which is not running tobacco, came out in 1973. And as it went along, today only 5 to 6% of the persons in Sweden who use snus use the old-fashioned do-it-yourself.
So, if I understand correctly, it was a Swedish answer to the cigarette filter to avoid loose material, to make the consumption more pleasurable and acceptable, and an innovation, more or less.
An innovation that changed the behavior. But it was not until a few years ago that women start picking up not snus, but nicotine pouches. And one of the major reasons is that nicotine pouches does not stain your teeth.
Yeah.
And you have also smaller sizes of pouches that don't bulge, showing that you are using them.
Yes, but the overall result is, of course, that smoking rates went down to approximately 5%. Sweden is quite leading in low levels of tobacco-related diseases, mortalities. So, at all, it's a quite successful story, which happened without much government involvement. But, of course, much was invested to make the product safer. Pasteurization, adapting upper limits for toxicants like nitrosamine. So I think it was quite a successful development.
Yes. Snus in itself, there came a scientific report just a few years ago about classifying the relative risk. And if smoking cigarettes is 100% risk, you will find snus at 3% risk, and nicotine pouches about the same risk as nicotine replacement products like nicotine patches or nicotine gum. There is an expression called the Swedish experience, and I'll very briefly tell you what it means. In Sweden, we use almost identical amount of nicotine per adult as the rest of the European Union. But smoking is now down to 5.6%, and we have 2 smoke-free generations which have reached lower than 5% daily smoking. And those are 18 to 44-year-olds. Looking at that age group, we have reached the WHO's and EU goal of less than 5% smokers. But Swedish experience, we consume as much nicotine as the rest of Europe, but we don't smoke it. We place it under our lip.
But you should be an example for the rest of Europe, because we could learn from Sweden how to prevent and reduce mortality, tobacco-related diseases, cardiovascular disease, cancer, quite substantially. But it's not the case. It's not repeated. And how do you reflect in Sweden on the, let's call it, stupidity of the rest of Europe, just to take not advantage of such a successful option?
I'm an economist. I worked as chief financial officers in Sweden, Libya, Saudi Arabia, Italy. And I mean, basically, well, if you want to be a good economist or a good engineer, you can't just sit and not look around you for good examples.
Yeah.
Sweden is a brilliant example. With such low smoking rates, we have the lowest rate of lung cancer, we have the lowest rate of oral cancer, although we put this here, cardiovascular diseases, you name it, among men mostly.
But you are not only an economist, you are also an inventor, and even if snus and pouches are already quite good and successful products, they can still be improved. And recently we got a report by Swedish dentist praising your invention just to make it easier to use snus, even for people who have irritations in the mouth or other medical conditions. Perhaps you would like to briefly explain what you...
It has to be a little... starting from the beginning. I quit smoking in 1991, but like 10 years ago, I started having big problems. My gums were hurting wherever I placed my snus. My gums were red. My problems were so severe, I decided to go for an emergency visit to my zahnarzt, my dentist. And he said, Bengt, you have snus lesions in your oral mucous membranes. Your gums are inflamed, and some other problems with gums starting to recede. So he said, Bengt, you have to stop using snus. And then I came up with this crazy idea. I put a Band-Aid or plaster or patch on one side of the snus pouch and cut away the waste, and I placed the protective side against my sore gums, and the pain disappeared immediately, and the gingivitis, which means inflamed gums, disappeared after a few days.
How many people are affected, if you roughly have to estimate these kind of irritations among?
That has been studied in Norway as well as in Sweden. In Norway, there was a study 2 years ago among 20 to 23-year-old snus users, and the prevalence of snus lesions, which is basically it looks like elephant skin, whitish. It's not very pleasurable to see. And already in that group, and these Norwegian young people have been using snus for about 3 years. So that's 80%. In a study by Dr. Peter Lindström at Gothenburg University, they concluded that the rate of users who get oral snus lesions is between 70 and 90%.
So quite a high percentage.
Yes. I'm the inventor of the sting-free snus technology, which is now patent approved in the United States and almost every country in Europe. And basically what it is I don't... You remember I told you when I was at the dentist, I put a Band-Aid. So what is the difference between a sting-free pouch and a normal pouch? This side is fully permeable, and the blue side is impermeable. So the blue side is placed against the gum, and the nicotine is released. It's water-soluble and absorbed by all the mucous membranes of the mouth. The gum, however, hardly does not absorb any nicotine at all because it contains keratin that we have in nails and hair. So
you don't lose nicotine resorption?
No, it's sort of prolonging. Since you one side is impermeable, you sort of prolong the flavor and nicotine release. It is reducing a little bit the nicotine, but you can have this product has 12 milligram per gram, and this one has 8 milligram per gram. If you are a heavy smoker, you can go up to 20 milligram.
Yes, but I think it's really amazing, and that still with such traditional products you have new invention, new idea in the 21st century. And as I understand it, it's an important step to continue the Swedish experience because you solved a quite common medical problem, and so it will be much easier really for people to stick with snus and not to look for other smoking alternatives. I think that's quite...
I think I forgot the most important thing. Our little company, it's me and my son, Daniel Wiberg. He's an engineer, I'm an economist. But we decided to see what does the consumer say. So we made 2 surveys in 2022 with more than 1,000 snus and nicotine pouch using men and women. And we asked the question, what is your opinion when it stings, when it burns, no matter when it happens? And 2/3 of the women said they think the stinging sensation is unpleasant. And 54% of the males say the same thing. Those who actually think that the burning sensation is the greatest thing on earth, that's 18% of the men and only 12% of the women. So how do we put this into perspective with tobacco harm reduction? There's 1.1 billion smokers, daily smokers in the world. When you try a product like snus or nicotine pouches for the first time in a country where you don't even know, you can't buy it, what happens? 9 out of 10 remove the pouch within 60 seconds because it hurts. You know, the cigarette, it doesn't hurt. I was at the Sweden Quit Smoking event last night, And this is very amusing. An Australian doctor said, yes, I try to tell my chain smoking patients, try nicotine pouches, but they say it's unpleasant. It burns, and their cigarette does not. And I had the pleasure of answering her. So now she knows you can actually make these products more accessible.
More acceptable and less hazardous because you avoid irritations. Do you think that will become standard for both snus and pouches?
We sincerely hope so for the sake of the consumers. How long ago was it? Coca-Cola were, full of sugar, 12 cubes of sugar in Coca-Cola. They came up with Diet Coke. Some people thought they were crazy, but here is a product with a lot of sugar. It gets you overweight and caries in your teeth. So here you have a product with 0 calories. But Coca-Cola, they expanded by having both options. If you look at clothes and shoes, you have Gore-Tex. They are a little bit more expensive, but you get other properties like being waterproof and so on.
Yes, but are you more expensive or?
It's a little bit more expensive to produce. We are now producing in a rather small scale via OEM manufacturers, but if we had more money or a big player do this in a more efficient way, the price could come down.
And your prognosis, will the Swedish experience finally manage to spread over Europe, maybe with the next TBD or maybe into other countries?
I sincerely hope so, because now everybody is a bit nervous, I think, in the tobacco harm reduction society about what will EU decide after the election, what will happen. But I sincerely hope that the commission stop ignoring what is happening in Sweden.
Yeah.
We quit smoking. I had some visitors from France the other week, and they said, yes, we were around town and we didn't see anyone smoke.
Yeah.
And if you go to Germany or France, everybody smokes.
Well, thank you very much. I think we are here in Warsaw at a place to be optimistic, and I sincerely hope that Sweden will give plenty more stimuli for harm reduction. And thank you very much for the interview. I have learned a lot about snus, and we will have other opportunities to talk. And it was a great pleasure.
Vielen Dank, Frank.
Ja, vielen Dank.
Ich hatte Deutsch studiert 3 Jahren, aber es war 50 Jahre bis so. Mein Grammatik sind sehr schlecht.
Never mind. It was
Wiedersehen. Thank you.